Hello everybody and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 309. My name is NBZ and here we stand, Bally, upon the precipice. We've waited and we've waited. How many years? At this point, I think over 9? Is it? No, is it 8?
For a Steam machine?
No, not for a Steam machine. That's cool and everything.
That's cool.
But we have waited, Bally, finally, to have an annoying NPC in our Metroid game. That's exactly what we've wanted this whole time, and finally we're going to get it on December 4th. There's been a lot of chatter on the internet, let me tell you what.
Someone on our Discord shared this quote from George Lucas. Sorry, I can't remember who shared this, but it was a quote from George Lucas describing episode 1 saying Jar Jar is the key to the whole thing or something.
Yeah.
it's like
Bally, we are primed to make Miles McKenzie our best friend. He will be our favorite character of all time. We'll talk about him greatly. It is kind of crazy that how old is this podcast now? Almost 12 years, I want to say.
Yes-ish.
We're probably passing the 12-year point around now, to be honest.
And we're going to get a Metroid Prime game.
We've not had a Metroid Prime game. We waited 8 years basically. It was summer of 2017 because they announced it in their E3 the year the Switch came out, right? And then it's been waiting since then.
The most expensive game ever.
Apparently, it makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
they did 2 years of development and then they gave it to Retro. So Retro really have been working on this for 6 years. I think 6 years of Retro development on this. So yeah, it's coming up here and we will be talking about it. I don't think next episode will be the episode after next, right? But because it's on the 4th, but still it's creeping close. I don't know. I do feel like there's a lot of stuff that's been overblown potentially. I saw John Redden mentioning hey, if only we could go back and see what people reacted to the opening of Metro Prime 3. Oh wait, NWR has that because it's a website that existed for that long, and so they have previews of Metro Prime 3 where people are like, don't know about all these NPCs talking to you, wonder if that will be a problem in the game. And it seems, I don't know, I think it's a slightly different situation here because we have seen that there are other characters that are going to pop up, but I wouldn't take this first hour of the game as gospel for what the game's going to be.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm not too worried. Yeah. And we live in this weird hype cycle. It's very strange where hype can be generated for a thing like Metro Prime 4 when the majority of the people building the hype haven't played the majority of the games in the series. So it's this very strange, now there's lots of people who are positive coming off of Metroid Prime 1 Remastered, and then there's people like me who have played 1 and 2, and I've played a chunk of 3. But there's lots of people who are either going into Metro Prime 4 blind, or have played a bit of Remastered and definitely haven't played the original 1, 2, or 3. And when I say people, I'm talking about reviewers and pundits and podcasters we listen to, and it's just wow, it has really been that long that there's a whole new generation of people working in video game critic fandom, etc., that is just it's just a different world. And so I agree, just take all these things with a pinch of salt, and if you want the real thoughts on Metroid Prime 4, you know where
you know where to go. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I think it's so everything I've seen from the preview looks very good, and I'm also someone who I'll probably just tune that stuff out because I don't listen to lots of dialogue and stuff anyway. I will usually always ignore it, so I don't think it really will affect me that much.
It's MBZ's code of is this game with narrative I care about? Yes or no? No, okay, skip. Just give me mechanics in my veins. Here we go, skip.
That said, Metro Prime 1, I actually was scanning and reading quite a lot because I did find it quite interesting.
It's a good lore build-up, Metro Prime 1.
For sure. Well, look, let's judge it when the game actually comes out and we've played it the whole way through. How about that? How about we judge it then? I think that would be healthy for everybody. So, looking forward to it greatly. And, we will be discussing it on this very podcast, so stay tuned. But we're here today. Bally, how are you doing?
I'm good. I have a voice. I went to more rugby and I managed to keep my voice this time. So that's a win in my book. I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good. That's good. Yeah, I'm all right. Not too bad. Got a few games here to talk about and things to get into, but Bally, do you want to tell the fine folks at home what today's show is going to be?
For this first segment, we're going to talk about the games that we have been playing, and then for the second segment, we're going to do some more emails.
Yes, indeed. So let's kick it off with a video game that we're a little bit late to the party on. It came out last month, and I have been playing it because I got into it a little bit later than everybody else, which is surprising, I guess, given my history. I find myself now, Bally, with Pokemon in this weird spot of...
Do you define yourself as a Pokemon person anymore? Is that the former self? Or how do you feel about that?
I think it is the former self, yeah. I don't think I do define...
Like me in Mario Kart, maybe? I just feel like a former Mario Kart fan.
Right, I think that's very true for both of us, yeah. We both kind of... I feel like we both had careers in these franchises, and now we're retired from these franchises, and every now and again we'll just be like, just thinking back of the memories of when we were top of our game, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, obviously Pokemon is a franchise that is extremely important. I wouldn't have my job if not for Pokemon. We wouldn't be doing this podcast if not for Pokemon. We probably wouldn't be friends if not for Pokemon. So I'd say much of my life is built upon...
After you forgave me for the football betrayal, I mean, we needed Pokemon to cling together.
We did. We needed it so badly. But yes, I think it's let's say it's slightly important in my life in terms of the way that it's gone. But yeah, obviously, I played a lot of the games, and mostly after fourth generation from a competitive standpoint, so I kind of looked at it from a different angle for a lot of time, and then kind of retired around when was it? It was when Alpha Sapphire came out, and then from then on I have kind of checked in with the games, and I've actually played I think all of them since then, which is interesting. So I played Sword and Shield, played Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, and now have played Pokemon Legends Z-A, Z-A, all those Z-A.
You finished it?
I've not finished it, no. So I am about 15 hours into the game. I've been kind of going, on and off the last couple of weeks with it. I've not been going crazy. Actually, this weekend, I've put the most time into it, because I think up to this weekend, I'd only put about 7 hours total. So I've been very much playing it 20 minutes at a time, putting it down, just slowly progressing things. And this weekend I was like, right, I'm going to talk about it on the podcast. Let's just get a good chunk in. So I've done a good chunk now, and so I feel like I've got a good sense of the game and what's going on with it. So yeah, I loved Arceus. I thought that was, I think, honestly, probably the best Pokemon game in a decade overall, just from a freshness perspective, and the way they kind of flipped it on its head and made it more about catching and more about the world and how Pokemon interface with humans, and the lore implications of that and the narrative side of that. I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was really well done, as well as having a more, different, like an ancient setting, right? Like a historical setting as opposed to a modern one. And so when Z-A was announced, I was a little disappointed, because it was, we're just in present day, and we're going back to the French region, Kalos, which is, from X and Y, and it's a city-focused game, which I was like, I don't know if that's really what I wanted from this, because I think the thing that I liked about Arceus was, different open expanses to go and explore. It had, very much leaning into Breath of the Wild in the way that it was marketed, from the perspective of, they did that one shot of looking over mountains and oh wow, they're really trying to be positioning this as a more of a Zelda exploration-y type thing. And I think, genuinely that it did a pretty good job of emulating that stuff. As far as it went from exploration standpoint. So, I wasn't too interested in this, and it's partially why I didn't pick it up straight away. I did, however, get a bit more curious about it at Gamescom, because I played that demo, and the Gamescom demo was like, oh, okay, this battle system's kind of different and interesting. So I was kind of curiosity piqued there. And so I'm jumping in now, and I am enjoying it. I think it's good. I think it definitely has a lot of flaws. I don't think it is at the level of an Arceus or even a Scarlet Violet, to be honest with you, just because Scarlet and Violet also had the open world stuff.
So you're telling me they've gone backwards? A
little bit. I would say they're obviously, as with all things Nintendo, it's one step forward and two steps backward, or three steps backwards sometimes, I think one of the things that's really struck me about it is, I'm so glad we're in the Switch 2 era. My God, I'm glad, because this game looks great. Now, there'll be lots of corners of the internet being like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a Pokemon game. It looks like it's old for babies, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. I'm talking from a sharpness, from a fidelity, from a frame rate perspective, from a purely technical perspective. The game looks really nice and also runs so smoothly, to the point where I'm like, this feels alien to me. You know, when you are coming off of Scarlet and Violet, that is like the most bug-ridden, sluggish game that has ever been put to the Nintendo Switch, having this instead is really just feels like a gift. And I like the first hour or so playing it, I was like, wow, I'm just like enjoying the fact that this like looks good and runs okay, you know, which should not be a thing that affects your enjoyment. But I think when you've been beaten down enough and you suddenly have something that is like a modicum of like decency, you're like, oh, okay, this is great actually. It's like when everyone's complaining about the combat in Witcher 3. Meanwhile, me, having just played Witcher 2, was like, oh my god, this combat's so much better than Witcher 2 that I'm just like, much more in the clouds about it. So yeah, a little bit of that perspective on it, which I think from everything I played on Switch 2 so far, this has been my favorite game to play handheld. And I think the larger screen and the way that the game is built, because the game has like large text boxes and the perspective on the character is like kind of nicely zoomed in, it feels like it's perfectly made for taking it somewhere else and playing it on a plane or a train or whatever, and still being immersed in the world and feeling that sense of like, oh, this feels natural to be playing handheld. Whereas I never quite felt that with Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong, the screen just felt a bit restrictive, and I think that's because in Donkey Kong you want to be looking out to the expanse and like exploring in that way and trying to find stuff, and like it just felt too cramped. It felt like I was kind of boxed in a little bit trying to play handheld with that game. But this just feels like it works perfectly. So I've mostly played it handheld, and then this weekend I've been playing it on my monitor. And yeah, I think both ways it works really, really well. I think it's definitely been my favorite, kind of like jumping back and forth with that so far, which has been very, very good. So the structure is interesting because this is the thing with Legends and the series. It seems like Legends is not necessarily a blueprint for every game that's a part of it. More so, Legends is being used as an excuse to be like, hey, what if we did something different from your traditional Pokemon game, right? And so I think it's unfortunate that, Legends Arceus was as successful as it was, because I think it created certain expectations of, oh, this is what a Legends game is, quote unquote. Whereas I think the Pokemon Company are viewing it as, okay, Legends is the series where we just kind of fuck about and we just do weird stuff, basically. It's like, it's like how Nintendo treat Kirby as just like a fuck around series of like, oh yeah, let's just do like a 10-pound game where you roll around and eat food, and then that's online also. Like that's the feeling I get from what they're doing here.
So you don't think the Pokemon Company are at all using the Legends series as a test ground for potentially integrating things into the main game? You think it's completely independent, or?
I don't think so. I think we already have evidence that it's partially being used for that, because, what Arceus was doing with more open exploration was then followed up with in Scarlet and Violet, right? With an open world. So I wonder if this battle system is something that they are testing the waters with, and I think
I've heard it's like Xenoblade.
Well, we can get into it. There is shades of that in there, but the thing I want to say is that we have this game coming out next year, right, called Pokemon Champions. That's going to be on mobile and on Switch, and that is going to be used henceforth for their official competitive stuff. So Pokemon VGC, everyone doing that stuff is going to be using Champions as opposed to the main, whatever Generation 10 is, that's not going to be used for the kind of competitive scene of Pokemon. What I think that means is that they are hopefully able to take more risks and more swings with the mainline series, and that's why maybe this battle system is a test ground for what will be in Generation 10, because if they are no longer kind of tethered to each generation for each competitive thing, then they can make the competitive thing its own kind of video game essentially, and then be more flexible and creative on the mainline series.
They're moving away from turn-based to like a Final Fantasy almost in like this weird
right
way.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think that is a possibility. So yeah, the battle system of it all is interesting. Xenoblade is a nice touch point to some degree. It's definitely a lot simpler than that, in the sense that each Pokemon still has 4 moves, right? So ultimately you're still having a limited amount of stuff you can do. It's a cooldown based system. So okay, let's say you throw out Totodile, who of course I chose because never in my life will I not choose a water starter. That's what I've done from the beginning. I will do for the rest of my life. So throw him out and you say, oh, use Bubble, right? So Totodile goes out there, he uses Bubble on the opposing Pokemon, and then you notice that, you know, it will start having a refresh on it. So it's like a counting down cooldown essentially. And when that bar has dropped all the way to the bottom and it's refreshed the icon, then you can use Bubble again. But it's in real time, right? So you're waiting for it to go down. But after you've used Bubble, you could then use Tackle straight after it. So you can basically use these and put them into like cooldowns one another after each other, basically. You can also bring Totodile back and then throw Pidgey out there. And because it's real time, if you call your Pokemon back before another Pokemon does its move, you could have that Pokemon do its move, miss your Pokemon, then throw a new one out, and you are, starting again, and you're basically dodging out the way of any move that they would have done. There is a bit of a not cooldown, but there is a delay to when you put your Pokemon out. So if you swap one in and out again, there's a delay you have to wait before you can then use a move, I guess, just to make it a bit more fair, because otherwise you could just constantly be swapping them in and out and dodging every move that your opponent is doing. So you do have to wait a little bit. But that's the kind of the bread and butter of how the combat works, which is to say it's real time. You are watching these moves happen. As you move around, your Pokemon will follow you. So sometimes if you want them to get out of the way of something and you see there's like an AoE happening, you can run away and like go in a corner and make sure that doesn't happen. And what this does to the battle system is a few interesting things. So for one, there's no PP anymore, which means that that's not a factor in moves, right? And so that's interesting because it's like, well, if I use Hyper Beam, then there's no negative there, I guess, right? Like things like that you start to think about of like, oh, it has infinite PP. So the way it works is that each move now has a timer associated with it. So I haven't got Hyper Beam yet, but I imagine, so if Bubble is a 4-second cooldown, I imagine Hyper Beam is like a 15-second cooldown or a 20-second cooldown, right? Which means you can use it, but then you have to wait a really fucking long time before you can use it again. And that's kind of how they've balanced it out, essentially, which I think is smart. And it's interesting because moves don't miss anymore either. They only miss within the contextualization of the world. So, say for example, you're fighting, in a garden and there's a plant pot in the middle of something. If you use a move and the Pokemon is behind a plant pot, it won't hit the Pokemon, it will hit the plant pot instead. So there is some positional stuff here where you do have to be careful about where you are relative to your opponent, because you could use a move that ends up missing, not because the move has low accuracy, but because your Pokemon literally misses, right? Which I think is quite cool, and I think this is the closest that a battling system for Pokemon has felt to the anime in the ways of telling your Pokemon what to do, having positioning matter, and having all that stuff factor into the way that it works, and having it all be real time as well, which I think is interesting. And it does feel like this is something they could build on for the next game, right, and do some interesting stuff with, which is why I think that is a possibility. But I think the other interesting thing is it kind of just changes the function of some moves, right? Like, how do you do Stealth Rock in a game where the function of Stealth Rock is switching Pokemon in and out and taking damage? Stealth Rock is now like a thing that just sits on the field, and if your Pokemon is in the middle of it, it just takes chip damage by moving through it. Same with Spikes and Poison Spikes that are just on the ground, and so if your Pokemon is in it, they'll take damage. Fire Spin and Whirlpool act as like physical AoEs that sit on the ground, and so if the other Pokemon is just in the middle of it, it still keeps taking damage over time as you then do another move to it. So I think it's very cool the way they have adapted moves that we know and love into different functions here. And it also makes me think of like, oh, I wonder, does like Swords Dance have a cooldown of like, okay, in a regular Pokemon game, you Swords Dance and then you have that boost until you swap out. In this, I'm not sure, because when you Swords Dance, you see your Pokemon has like glowing stuff around it, signifying like it's powered up. But does that eventually like dissipate and go away? Because otherwise, like, I don't know how it functions. Like, it feels like some of this stuff I'm not 100% clear on yet. And I think that's quite good, because it means that there's that experimentation that is still interesting to have with all these different moves and seeing what they do. So yeah, I have very much enjoyed the way that it's gone so far, and it also feels quite quick. Like, the battles are relatively snappy because you see somebody and you can challenge them in the way of a regular Pokemon game, which is to say, if you walk towards them, they're going to go, and then they're going to like shout at you, and then, they'll get an advantage essentially. Or you can be stealthy about it. So if you're like stealthing behind them and you send your Pokemon to go do a move, you can basically kill an entire Pokemon before the battle has even started by being like, right, Pidgeotto, go over there and wing attack that fucking Bidep. What the fuck is it called? Budgie is the little fucking grass guy. I was like, wing attack that Budgie. And so I've had these matches where like I kill a Pokemon immediately, and then they only have 2 left, right? And then you kind of like get into it, and you're much more in the fight. But yeah, there's a stealth aspect to it, which I think is interesting. I don't think it works particularly well because basically the way it functions is if the trainer sees you, then the match will start. However, if you send your Pokemon there, they won't notice that the Pokemon is just coming up to them and attacking. So the stealth of it is making your character invisible to the trainer, and have the Pokemon then be able to attack. But you have to be a certain distance to them before you can attack them. So it's the kind of this, give and take of being able to, not be too close to be spotted, but like hopefully be around a corner or behind a plant pot or whatever to kind of obfuscate yourself and kind of, not be seen, and then be able to kind of get the jump on them, especially. So yeah, it's very interesting in that way.
That's the mechanic for trainers. How do the wild Pokemon work if there's no like long grass because you're in a city,
right?
Or are there random patches of long grass in the city?
No, so this is the wild zone concept that they kind of talked about before the game came out, where across the city there are designated areas that are called wild zones, and you kind of they have like holograms around them. Basically, they're basically like big circles with like
the Safari Zone from Red and Blue.
Kind of, I would say, but much smaller in scale, right? They are really small spaces where you go inside them, and within each wild zone there will be a selection of Pokemon. So it'll be like, in this one, you've got Bellsprout, and you've got Ghastly, and you've got Baneri, and I don't know, fucking Chikorita or whatever, right? And they're all just running around, and you can tick them off, basically. So each one you catch then gets added to your Pokedex, obviously, but also to the wild zone itself. And so you can keep track of if you've 100%ed a wild zone, which is quite nice. It means that you can, have a good idea of like where Pokemon you've already got are and where you don't need to go again, essentially. But there is a similarity to Arceus and to Scarlet Violet in the catching of it, where if you are stealthy and if you are kind of like hiding in grass and they can't see you, then you throw a Pokeball, you could just catch them. And there's this really nice like UI visualization of it, which is when you're near the Pokemon, it will show you like arrows, basically. So 1 arrow means like, oh, not a very good chance of catching it, whereas 4 arrows means, oh, I have a really high chance of catching it, basically. So if you're behind them, if you like catch them unawares and you throw the Pokeball to their back, the arrow will go up by 1, basically. So say there are 2 arrow Pokemon, if they're turned around and they have their back to you, it suddenly goes up to 3, so you have a bigger chance of getting it if you kind of catch them unawares from behind, which I believe was the similar thing in Arceus as well. But in this situation, it's a little more tricky, because say that you throw a Pokeball and then they break out, then they are going to be, trying to attack you. You can still keep throwing Pokeballs, but there gets to a point where it doesn't let you anymore. So you can throw like 5 of them, and then it'll be like an X goes over the Pokemon, and that means you have to then attack it, engage with it, kill it, but you don't actually kill them in this game. They basically go into a state where they have like confused birds over their heads, and that's when you can then get your final chance to catch them. And here's the tricky thing. If you don't get it on that final chance after you've knocked them out, that Pokemon disappears, and then you can't get it.
Oh.
So like I was up on a rooftop and I saw a Larvitar. I was like, oh shit, I want a Larvitar, because I obviously, T-Tar's my man, want that. So I was going up, I was trying to be stealthy, threw the Pokeballs, it wasn't being caught, it was very hard to catch, obviously, Larvitar. And then I was like, all right, here goes for Alligator, go do Bubble Beam. I knocked it out in 1 hit, threw the Great Ball at it, and it didn't work, and it disappeared. I was like, fuck. So rare Pokemon like that, I imagine if you want to complete the Pokedex in this game, it's going to be a little bit more annoying, because things like Goomy or Larvitar or Gibble is the first one of Garchomp, right? Those like rarer Pokemon are harder to catch and also harder to find. So not only do you have to spend time looking for them, because they spawn less frequently, but they are also more difficult to catch, so that if you mess up, then it's going to take even longer to try and complete them, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I think that stuff can get a little bit funky, but I think overall it's fine for the most part. I now have a bunch of Ultra Balls. They past a certain point in the story, they let you buy Great Balls, and then they let you buy Ultra Balls. Basically, they've really streamlined it so that the Pokemon Center allows you to just heal, but then also buy everything from there. So, and you can also fast travel anywhere at any point in time. Like, you don't need fly. Like, this game feels so streamlined in its systems. Almost to a fault, maybe. I don't know. Like, there's something about, I guess, traditional Pokemon games of being able to, like, feel that sense of, now I can conquer the world because I can fly places and I can surf places and all that sort of stuff. Because it's a city, it's a slightly different thing, because you can run around the entire city from the beginning of the game, almost. It does have guardrails at the start. It does the classic, like, tutorialization, be like, no, I can't go over there. Yeah, I have to talk to this person. But let's say, like, 5 hours into the game, once you're at that point, you can pretty much run over the whole city and unlock all the fast travel points. And by then, you can then just click on your map and just fast travel anywhere. So, yeah, there's no penalty. You just fast travel wherever you want. Yeah, you can do stuff at the Pokemon Center. You can also, in your menu, here's an interesting change. Pokemon don't evolve when they hit the level that they're supposed to evolve at. You have to go into the menu and click an icon and say, yeah, I want to evolve them.
What?
Yeah. So Pokemon hit the level, and then you go into your menu and you're like, I would like to evolve this person, please. Same thing with learning moves. It never tells you explicitly that you've learned a move.
What's the advantage of that?
I don't know that there is an advantage, aside from if somebody wants to keep Totodile the whole game and make it level 60, they can do that, I guess. But it's more of a freedom thing, I guess, to the player of like, oh, do you want to evolve them? Yeah, you don't have to. You can kind of keep them as they are.
You don't have to... there was like an item that they could hold
the Everstone,
to stop
right?
evolving, right? Yes, Everstone. And then there was also, otherwise you just have to press B during evolution.
Yes, yeah. Right? Basically, every level you would go up, you just had to press B every time, which could get annoying.
Okay.
So I think that's like a streamlining to make it so that if people want to do that, they can do that.
Right. Now you can hold an item that is not an Everstone.
Totally, right.
In a Totodile. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's cool. But then also, you can just go into their moveset and just change it whenever you want to whatever you want based on what you have. Like, TMs are infinite, so you can just, like, change whatever TM you want at any time. You can just change any move that they've ever... There's no move tutor. There's none of that bullshit. It's just, like, go in the menu and just choose what moves you want. And if you want to change them, just change them. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, they're just, like, giving you the freedom. It's almost, like, they're getting closer and closer to just making Showdown, basically, which I think is what they are actually doing with Pokemon Champions. Pokemon Champions is essentially Showdown. But it's like, it just feels so, like, on the Pokemon of them to allow us to do this. It just feels, very, very cool. And, it's a similar thing with, like, when you learn a new move, it kind of tells you in the corner, it's like, oh, they just unlocked a new move, but sometimes you'll miss that, and I'll be like, why has my Pidgey still got, like, fucking wing attack and stuff? I'm like, oh shit, I could have given it Aerial Ace, but I had to go into the menu to give it that, you know? My Heracross got close combat recently, and I was like, right, I'm immediately getting rid of Brick Break and switching close combat in for that, you know? So that's the sort of thing you just have to keep on top of and make sure you're micromanaging, because you can forget about it and you're like, oh shit, I haven't changed my moves to something a bit more relevant. And it's good that they let you do that, because there are some side quests that will be like, oh man, I need this particular move, can you show it to me, that type of thing, right? And so in a regular Pokemon game, it'd be a case of, run back to the Pokemon Center, find someone who's in my boxes in order to, like, give them, then I'll take them out, run back to the person. And in this game, it's like, oh, maybe I just go into my move pool and just change it for one of my active Pokemon. And even if the active Pokemon don't have access to it, boxes are in your menu as well. So you can just swap in and out your boxes from the start menu also. So it's like they have just completely flattened any kind of, like road bumps when it comes to move sets and evolving stuff and switching between boxes. Like there was a quest I did, which is so you know Pansear and Panport, the monkeys, the elemental monkeys. I can't remember if those were in those were in Gen 5 actually, which I don't think you played Gen 5.
I know of them, but
right.
Yeah.
So those guys, they kind of hang out in trees in the city, and there's a quest for a guy who's like, oh, can you show me all three of them? And I actually just finished that today because I couldn't find a Pansear. It was the last one I couldn't find. I found it in a tree. I went back to him, and he was like, oh, they all need to be in your party. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll just go in and just swap them in from my boxes then and there. I don't need to leave anywhere. Just, like, do it and then swap them back again. And it's like, yeah, there's a friction that's just been completely removed. And I think this has been a thing that has happened over time, like, because elements of this have existed in other Pokemon games previous to this, but it feels like Z-A has just culminated in this exceptionally smooth experience, which I just find very, very easy to navigate, and has been very good in that perspective. So I feel like the thing that is less exciting about it is the city of it all, which is to say, the city is decently sized, and yet I probably couldn't tell you where I was at any point in time relative to anywhere else. Which is to say, it all kind of looks the same. It has obviously the big tower in the middle, the kind of like Eiffel Tower equivalent. But aside from that, like, knowing where I am without using the map is kind of impossible, which I wouldn't say was the case for Arceus, because it had 5 or 6 open world spaces that were all probably the size of this city, and every single one of them had a different biome right to it, and so different types of Pokemon were being found there. And so yeah, I think the priorities are different. The priorities for this game feels much more battle focused and combat focused than exploration focused. Well, because while there is exploration and you can get around the city and find, it has the classic shiny thing on the ground where you just run over a thing and you get an item. And there's also Pokeballs everywhere, which is just like running up and picking up an item that's on the floor, and those refresh as well. So you're like, you can just keep running around and picking stuff up non-stop. There is fun in doing that and going on the rooftops, but I'd say overall it doesn't really feel that exciting from an exploration standpoint. It's just kind of like, okay, I'm enjoying just kind of running around, but it's not like I feel like I'm finding anything or like seeing anything unique, right? So I think that is as disappointing as I kind of expected it would be. But it gives, because it has the buildings, that has a bit of more dimensionality, which is to say that you have these elevators that are not elevators, they're almost teleport points at the bottom of a building. So you go to the teleport point, it teleports you to the top. Some buildings have ladders as well, so you can use a ladder to get up. And then you can kind of stay on top of the city, stay on top of buildings, and travel across buildings and find routes towards them.
Spider-Man over here.
Well, a little bit light Spider-Man. I got an ability recently that let me hover now, so I can use. So okay, here's the dumbest thing in the world. So what happens in a Pokemon game if you fall off a really high building, Bally? What would be a smart thing to do so that you don't hit the ground and splat your face? What could you do in Pokemon? With Pokemon,
a Pokemon comes and saves you and stops you falling. On the
or
ground.
like you have like a Pidgey that you can hold on to it and stops your fall. No, your phone is a Rotom, and when you fall, your Rotom phone just pops out and becomes a thing that just takes you softly to the ground, because that's logical. So when you jump, you have a Rotom phone, and that just for some reason has fucking hovering magic to it, and then that lets you.
It was just like a thing thought of at the last minute and shoehorned in, and they couldn't. I don't know how that comes into the game.
I think it's one of those things where they have to give this to you at the beginning of the game before you have a Pokemon that could fly potentially.
I guess,
and so it's well, your phone also can let you not die. So there you go, which is very silly. But so I got an ability where now my Rotom phone lets me hover a little bit in midair, and there were certain points where I was like, how do I get to that Pokeball? Because I can't jump over this spot. There's no jumping in this game. So I was like, how do I do that? Turns out I need to get that ability in order to get there. So that's, fun. It's added a bit more dimension to going across the rooftops. But at the end of the day, it's not that exciting, and I think, it's fine. I have really enjoyed, I would say, quote unquote, the side quests. I'd say I enjoyed them in the sense that they're very quick to do, and they don't really involve much, and so you can tick them off the list quite nicely. Between each story beat, there will be 3 or 4 question marks that'll pop on the map, or exclamation marks, and I'm like, oh, I'll just knock those out very quickly. And some of them are as simple as, oh, my elevator is broken here, or the teleportation device to get you up to the top of the roof. If only I had an electric Pokemon to jolt this into gear. And then literally the side quest is you take out a Pokemon with an electric move and use it, and that's the side quest done. So they're very light, I will say, and simple, but some of them are quite fun in the sense of I think the strength really of Arceus and of this game, which the regular Pokemon games don't really do a good job of, is contextualizing Pokemon within the world and having side quests that make sense of how Pokemon and humans would interact and what they would be used for, right? And how they would how situations would happen, basically. So one of the ones that I liked was, it's extremely simple because all it is use a move essentially, but a girl has a scyther, and she's like, oh, I really want to open up this this hairdresser's shop so I can get these furfrau and make sure that all the furfrau have really nice, haircuts and stuff like that. But my scyther, it doesn't know how to do that. It doesn't know the move slash. Can you teach it slash? And so it's like, oh, there's a substitute doll over here. If you bring back a Pokemon that knows slash, just do that and teach it to him. So I have an Absol that has slash, so I put it out there, use slash on the doll, and she's like, oh yes, now Scyther can learn. And so Scyther like learns how to slash, and then they're like, well, now I'm going to open up my whole Furfrau shop, and suddenly a sign appears, and now she has a Furfrau shop, and then once you get a Furfrau, you can go to her and get a haircut for it and change what it looks like. So stuff like that is fun, of like, okay, it's very light, it's not really great from a writing standpoint, but like it has at least context of like the world and Pokemon and how people are, working with them alongside them in like a regular job, like being a hairdresser, right? I think is quite fun. So that's the sort of thing that has made those engaging and interesting and worth doing. There was one that was a kind of a bit of a riddle, because usually in these side quests, either it is, oh, I'm going to teach you about reflect and light screen. Can you beat my Pokemon with those? And obviously immediately you just wipe the floor of those fucking barriers that aren't even a problem because your Pokemon are overpowered. But like one of them was, it's a bit of a riddle of like, oh, we need to find the yoga master, and they have like, here's a little bit of a riddle, and it doesn't tell you where to go on the map or what to do, and then you're kind of like thinking of, oh, maybe it's over there, and you go and find it, and it's not difficult at all, but it's like, at least my brain was engaged a little bit, which I feel like a lot of these are not that, but they're still fun enough to do, I guess. So yeah, I think, despite it being very easy and light, I think it's still nice. And there's some cool areas. There's a museum you go into that is got a lot of references to past Pokemon stuff, like some cool paintings on the wall, and every time you interact with them it kind of gives you a little description of it. There's a whole like area at the top of the museum that's dedicated to Hisui, which is the ancient Sinnoh region from Arceus, and so it has like a lot of Arceus nods and references in that museum, which I think is quite cool. So yeah, there's good stuff like that. And then like earlier today I did a side quest, or a main quest actually, where you have to go down into the sewers of the city, so you have like a little bit of a different area and feels a bit dungeony to some degree. So yeah, that was fun. So I think despite the city being a bit of a drawback, there are elements to it that I like, but I think overall it's not quite as exciting. If for example, the city was your hub and it was this big, and then also you could go out into the world and go to different spots, I think that would have made the game stronger, generally speaking. But
that was the hope with the original trailers and things. It was like, oh, maybe you could go beyond, and then it became the whole game in the city. But
right, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I think all that stuff is a little underwhelming, but it's overall pretty good. And I have generally enjoyed just running around and progressing the story and doing all that sort of stuff. I think there's some nice fun characters in there, and it's a Pokemon story, so it's not Shakespeare over here, but it's fine. It does the job. I think the one aspect I haven't touched on yet is the Mega Evolution stuff. So you can get the stones that Mega Evolve your Pokemon. Mega Feraligatr looks like a fucking idiot, by the way. I'm just saying, a lot of these new Mega forms are just, I don't know if you've seen Starmie. Starmie's been going around the internet. Yeah. Maybe the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's overtaken Dragonite.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. There's some really fucking stupid ones here. But yeah, you can get the Mega Stones for your own Pokemon. I think 5 of my 6 have Mega Stones, and I think that's a little bit of a drawback as well, because one of my critiques, I think, of this game from a Pokemon standpoint is there's not that many different Pokemon, because the wild zones are quite restricted in how many. There's like 5 or 6 per wild zone, and at the beginning you only have access to like 3 or 4 wild zones, so it's like, my party is not going to be that different from other people's parties, because there's not a huge amount of variety here in terms of usable, like, good Pokemon. So I felt a little limited in like my team composition and who I can actually use, which is a bit of a shame. But I think part of that is because they want to make sure that every team has like at least 2 or 3 Mega Pokemon in it. And if they had too many Pokemon that didn't have Megas, then you wouldn't have the ability to do that. So I think that's kind of partially why they have decided to do that. But the Mega Evolution evolution stuff. You can Mega Evolve your own Pokemon, but there are these special Mega Battles where it's called Rogue Mega Evolution, where the Pokemon will just like suddenly evolve into a Mega Pokemon, and you're in this huge arena that's like, I don't know, cut off from the real world, and you're just running around while this giant kind of, it's almost like a raid battle in an MMO. It's like a giant boss essentially, and they're much larger than you. And those fights require a lot of running around and dodging out of the way, because also you as a human can die in this game. Not die, be blacked out or whatever they call it, right? You as a person, if you take too many hits from a Pokemon in one of those fights, then you lose and you get knocked out even though your Pokemon is still alive. So you need to dodge out the way of these moves while also getting your Pokemon to hit them and do damage. And you're doing like no damage to these Mega Pokemon, which is why you have to basically build up Mega Energy, and then you can Mega Transform your own ones, and then that does a lot more damage, basically. So these fights are basically based around hitting them with specific moves. They have this thing called plus moves, which is where I think if you use a move enough, it becomes plus, and that basically means that when you use it, it increases your Mega Meter. You basically have to lift up this meter, or like fully fill it up, and then you can Mega Evolve a Pokemon. So using more plus moves means that you get more meter, then you can Mega Evolve more quickly. So that's kind of the idea, is like use a lot of those and then transform and then do a bunch of damage, and then you go back again and do it again. And usually it takes 2 or 3 cycles of you Mega Evolving your Pokemon in order to defeat these guys. They're fun fights. I think another thing that makes it a little bit lesser than Arceus is Arceus had like 5 or 6 distinct boss fights where like at the end of an area it would be like this giant thing, and you would have different mechanics to it. It would, you know, be doing different moves on you and everything, and it felt a bit more involved and unique, versus every mega fight is in the same arena, and they are different Pokemon, but ultimately it's kind of the same loop you're doing, which is dodge out the way and then hit them and then get your mega stuff leveled up and then do more damage to them. So the boss fights are cool, but they are pretty much the same throughout the game, where Arceus had these spectacle fights that were a bit more unique and interesting. So yeah, I think the Mega stuff is fine. I think it makes sense given this is X and Y in this kind of context. And also I think of all the gimmicks that they've done over the years, it's probably the one that people don't hate the least, I guess, because it's, you know, it's one of the first ones and people were kind of cool with it at the time. So yeah, I think that's probably why. But yeah, I'm at the moment I am rank C or rank D, I think, and you have to hit rank A, Z to A, obviously, in order to be the champion of the world or whatever the fuck's going on here. So I imagine there's going to be some legendary Pokemon.
Champion of the city.
The city, that's it, yeah. So I'll probably, you know, beat some guy, and then eventually I'll be the champion, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm having a good time. I think of the more recent Pokemon games, it's not as good as even Scarlet and Violet, I think. You know, if you're kind of torn between which one you want to play, Scarlet and Violet now has a Switch 2 upgrade, which I would say go for that instead. But the real thing I want is Arceus to get a Switch 2 upgrade, because of all of these, Bally, I think that's still the one I would recommend to you.
Okay.
From everything
that
I played so far. But yeah, no, it's good. I think I'm having a good time with it overall, and yeah, I do like checking in with Pokemon. You know, it's one of those things where, as a retiree, I can kind of sit back and look at it from a little bit of a different perspective than I think other people can, which is cool. So yeah, I'll probably finish that by next time, and I don't imagine much will have changed. But yeah, I'm glad that I played it. So there you go. Nice. It's Pokémon Legends Z-A. Bally, you've mainly been playing more Hades 2, but you want to talk about something else for this podcast.
Yeah, I've been playing more Hades 2. I'm nearing the end, and I think when we do talk about that MBZ, we'll do it in spoiler form. So I think that's the best way to kind of wrap that up before the end of the year. What else have I been playing? I have been getting Bally Jr. into video games. Now, I think I talked about it on the show a little while ago, or intermittently, I've sort of mentioned some games that we tried. So when MBZ was around, when were we last around? In the summer?
Oh, yeah, around summertime, yeah.
Yeah, and then previously I had tried a bit of Mario Kart World with Bally Jr., and he likes it, but and I thought it was great because it was more simplistic than controlling, like, you know, a camera, like you're just accelerating and steering. But
yeah,
there's just I'd go into open world mode with him, and he just needed structure. He didn't know what to do, and then he wanted to keep playing, but I was like, but you're not doing anything, let's stop playing. And it just got a little bit fractious, and I think I needed something just a bit more guided, more structure. So we did try some DK at one point. Again, like that was a lot for him to take in. And then we tried some Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and I introduced him to the opening level, and it went fairly well. But then I thought, as good as this is, I think like his first 3D platformer, I kind of think Astrobot might be a better fit, because I just think it as simple as it sounds, Kirby and the Forgotten Land has more mechanics, and I can get to it at the end because we actually come back around to Kirby.
Okay.
But there's more mechanics in Kirby. Like there's a health bar. There's the checkpointing is more sparse. You are inhaling for abilities, and then there's another button to get rid of your ability, and then you can inhale another ability, and then the button to use the ability is the same button as the inhale ability. And for someone who doesn't even know how to 3D platform yet, that is a lot to take in. So I thought, right, let's try Astrobot, my game of the year from last year. Let's give it a go. And I think when you're playing a game with a kid or anyone you're trying to get into video games, really, I think there are a number of aims. So I think the number one aim is to have fun. And then I think the secondary aim is to get better at video games. So it's this balance of like, I'm not here just to be a stickler and say, you have to do this to get better at video games. It's like, that's not a fun experience. That's just daddy being a dick and then being like, this is how you get good at video games. Equally, I want him to do it on his own to some degree, because he can feel engaged, and that's what's unique about video games. You're controlling things in the game, and this isn't just let's just watch daddy play video games. That's a kind of a different thing. So it's this interesting balance. And going into the very first level of Astrobot, it's not even the level, it's kind of the intro. It's kind of in that desert area, and sure enough, in Mario Brothers 1 fashion, there's a jump, and it gets you to do a jump over a gap, and then it gets you to do a jump to progress, and then it makes you do that same jump over a gap. So it's like progressing the idea of jumping. And just the idea of like moving around in a 3D space initially for him was a bit like, oh my, like this is a lot. And he's kind of, so the PlayStation 5 controller, the DualSense, is quite large, especially for his hands. So he is holding the left analog stick with his thumb, index finger, and middle finger, like just like hooking it together and moving it around like that. And that makes sense. I think that works. And then he's just like jumping, and I'm explaining like, right, X is the jump button. And so he was kind of getting there. And I kind of thought like, right, I can tell you how to do this, and the level is as simple as it can possibly be. There is one jump to get over, and then there's a follow-up jump after that, etc. But for him to advance, there's no enemies. It's just him and this jump, and he has never done a jump in the game before, other than a tiny bit of Kirby like 20 minutes ago. But other than that, like, it was kind of like a big moment, and it's like, right. And I think he just found it very hard. And so what we would do was pass the controller back and forth to each other. And I'd be like, right, I'm going to show you this jump. And I'd do it a few times. Then he would do it. And then I think that it's that natural instinct of me just being so proud when he does pull off something like that first jump. And I give him a high five. I say, well done, Bally Jr., or well, his name. And then I'll be like, great job, like, let's keep going. And he's like just completely pumped from the whole situation, and then that progresses to the next level. So it's just really interesting seeing that even at that most basic level, there's still a lot to learn. And it all kind of stemmed from there, where we would play through levels, enemies start being introduced, and this was quite a big challenge, because it's like, right, now the timing of the way that you go through the level is not on your own terms. If you don't do it within a time limit, or get rid of this enemy in a time limit, you're going to die. And I think that the first few times Bally Jr. got killed or died or whatever, he was a bit like, oh, okay, right, that I think he really hated that happening. And it was like, okay, well, it's good that he doesn't want to die. It's good that he it's good that he doesn't want this to happen. So maybe that'll motivate him to be, take on the baddies a bit more. And it was kind of this back and forth of, well, now the baddies are in like 3 or 4 tiers because there's the tier that Bally Jr. can manage. And so the tier that Bally Jr. can manage there are certain enemies in Astrobot where they don't actually do any damage to you. They literally just come up to you.
They just kind of bounce you away.
And they just bounce you away. And I guess on certain narrow levels, they have the ability to push you off the stage. Sure. That's like the bottom tier. And quite early on, Bally Jr. was like, I can do those. And then he just kind of like bop them and press square, punch them, and that was fine. And then there would be like that. Then the next tier is like the spiny enemies that have their spikes inside them, but then we'll eventually let's get them out. And it's about trying to punch them before they get their spikes out. And at the start of the game, that was a big challenge for him. But it's a really good example of a thing that by the end of the game, it was like, right, they're easy. I just go in there, bop, 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 do it. And it's like, oh my, like the speed at which you're progressing, I'm finding so impressive. And it was just that balance of, right, oh, daddy, I can see enemies coming. Can you like play the next bit? And so I'll just bop all the enemies and then he plays through the level. And it's that kind of balance of passing the controller back and forth. The checkpointing is so generous in Astrobot. It's really like I can get, if he dies at any point in any level in Astrobot, I can probably get back to that exact point within about 20 seconds maximum, honestly. Like it's really easy to just speedrun him back to that point. So I felt very open and free to just let him explore, experiment, die, retry again and again, because this game I just think is so well designed for what the task we were trying to do, which is like to help teach Bally Jr. 3D platforming. Like I just think it's such a good balance of, right, well, this enemy's too difficult, Dad can do a bit, Bally Jr. is going to do some, and back and forth, and we just kept making progress. And I felt like level on level he was getting better and better. And I think one thing that is so good about Astrobot is there are so many times, well, first of all, visually it is just a feast for his eyes. Like he's never seen anything like this before. It looks amazing, especially for a 3-year-old. It's just there's so much exciting stuff going on. But I think what's so good about Astrobot is there's so many points in levels where you just pull a switch or you just flick a thing or you jump on a button and then it sets off something very grand and spectacular in the level. Like I'm thinking of stuff like there's like the singing tree level quite early on. Like when you initially water that thing and then it grows, first of all, the kind of like controls on the DualSense, like watering and stuff, he was so into all of that extra,
all the motion
gyro stuff, all the motion stuff and blowing on the controller. Like I think he thought that was fantastic, and a lot of it is very simple for him to pick up instantly, which I think is really interesting. It's not 3D platforming, it's doing all this other stuff.
It makes you think a lot about like what Nintendo were doing with the Wii and the DS, and like the intuition of those things. Massively. Where obviously, for adults at the time, they're like, this is baby shit. It was like, well, yes, it is baby shit because the babies can understand how to do it. Yeah,
this is how you get them into video games. So yeah, I think certain levels like that were just very fun for him, and he loved like the giant robot that has returned in every Astrobot game. Like you kind of jumping in his palm, and you free him in Astrobot and then jump around him, and yeah, I think just the speed at which he was picking up the abilities. And so later in the game, we get to a final boss of a world, and we didn't have enough Astrobots. And I said, don't worry, next time we can take on this boss. And then while Bally Jr. was sleeping, I went away and got some more Astrobots so that when he came back, we could do this. And then this happened again in the final world. And I thought, you know what? I think Bally Jr. might actually enjoy going back to old levels and collecting some Astrobots. And I wanted to try and instill in him, like, we don't have to collect everything, because if we're going to collect everything, I think that's going to suck all the fun out of this experience for you. We are just collecting 10 more Astrobots to get to this final boss. And he kind of got that idea. But my God, going back to some of the early game levels and seeing the speed at which he was getting through them and taking on the baddies was mind-blowing. Like it was like, wow, you have picked up 3D platforming in the space of, I don't know, we've been playing this game across months, I think. At this
Right,
point,
yeah.
we're going to play one level at a time.
Well, so I would get these voicemails at the weekend from
Yeah.
Bally and Bally Jr. and Bally would be like, "Go on, tell them what you did," and he'd be like, "No, I don't want to." Well, no, he wouldn't be like. He'd be like, "No, I don't know," and then sometimes he would go off and just say loads of stuff.
He'd
So
go off
that
on
was-
one,
yeah.
and then I did this, and then I did this, and we did this baddie, and then I did this level. So yeah, no, it was great giving Uncle MBZ an update at the end of most levels. It was very fun for him, which was really good.
Well, so was he able to like finish a whole level from the start on his own by the time you went back to them? Okay.
No. I don't think there was any level he could do that. There was always something that just kind of got in the way, or these kind of things, and you go through stretches, and a lot of it was his own confidence. Honestly, it's that.
Yeah.
I think he wished there was just more levels in the game with zero baddies whatsoever. And I think for any developers out there thinking about designing a game for kids, or even just it'd be nice if the next Astrobot just had a toggle. You can just toggle enemies on and off or something as simple as that. You know, just having completely frictionless. I'm going to say frictionless. It's not frictionless. It's just focusing on the platforming. That's what I think he might have benefited from. But equally, we needed the enemies there so he could get better at defeating the enemies. So you kind of want best of both worlds.
You do, right? Because when he grows up, he's not going to have games that don't have enemies. It's
exactly.
It's a thing you kind of have to learn from the beginning. But yeah, I think the way it's designed though at the very start of okay, the enemies actually don't do damage to you, and you can jump and have that leeway. I think is nice, and it's I don't know, to what degree was you getting him to play Astrobot influenced by hearing Nicolas Doucet's speech at the Game Awards, where he's like, this is going to be the kid's first video game type of thing? Because I feel like it makes some sense.
It wasn't really, but it was just when I started thinking about what do I want to give him, what is Kirby and Forgotten Land not doing that I want? And it's stuff like clear checkpointing, simpler mechanics. Astrobot is much more mechanically simple, like I was saying, than a game like Kirby or even Mario. Mario's got live systems.
Right.
We can get past live systems. I'm not worried about that in the future, but as a first experience, Astrobot is just magical. It is so good. It's so simple in what it's trying to do. I think there are points at which I had to help him with the camera, and he basically would be gaming, and mid-game he'd just go, "Camera help," and that meant I need to just reach over.
Well, at least he has an understanding of what it means, right?
So. He has an understanding. He's like, I can't see my character. It's like, right, okay, so yeah, camera is going to be a big deal at some point, but we're not there yet, and that's fine. But yeah, Astrobot is just so... Well, it was my game of the year last year. I think it's a very fun game. I think it's the most fun game I've played in years. I think that it was a good opener, and you're right, it's learning on things Nintendo did, and in many ways for a toddler is doing them better. And I think that's what's so impressive about Astrobot, and he was so excited about it's even simple stuff like the way stuff is revealed in a level feels very kind of Disney, or the way that worlds are revealed, like the boss is behind this padlock key and it's a mystery, but the whole silhouette of the universe is the big bird or whatever, so it's like, oh, Bally Jr., I think the final boss of this level is like a big bird, and then mixing up levels with the throwback levels to like God of War, and I think the Uncharted one was quite a power trip for Bally Jr. because all of a sudden he's got this gun, or we call it a cannon or a blaster.
Of course, yes.
Try to move away from a gun.
Yeah, don't let him know what a gun is.
Yeah, it has a gun. I mean, I'm sure he knows what a gun is, but we were trying not to use the word gun, but I think he got a real power trip from wow, now I'm just blasting enemies and I can defeat even some of the enemies that I've been handing the controller over to Dad on loads of previous levels. I am now just taking them out myself. And I think that was a really nice power trip from him. And then stuff, like I was saying with the water and spraying that tree, the seed, the gyros on, let's say, the Loco Roco level, he immediately got, even though that's the only level like it in the game, he immediately was like, wow, this is simple. And it's actually one thing, because once we beat Astrobot, I said, Bally Jr., did you know there's another Astrobot game? You see? And he's like, another Astrobot game? I said, okay, but look out, it's much, much shorter than the other game. So we did play Astro's Playroom after Astrobot, and we've now finished that. But one thing I was going to say, linking that, is I wish the Loco Roco controls were the controls for the ball level on Astro's Playroom. I think that that's something that Bally Jr. in particular really struggled with, was that ball level. I think the controls are just, it's very strange. You're basically stroking the ball on the touchpad. I think they could have just done a gyro ball level, like a monkey ball or something.
Right, I forgot about that. I feel like gyro would make so much more sense, because I believe that's the way that Galaxy handles it, right, with the Wii Remote. So
yeah. And the other thing that Bally Jr. wasn't able to do was boss fights in either game. They are just a level of, there's a level of pressure and level of timing and knowing boss moves, knowing how, but like there's so much video game language in boss fights versus the rest of the level that I think are just a good few levels above his ability.
So Patrick Klepek's his crossplay, his kids focus, parents and kids focus newsletter. I check in every now and again because he has some interesting takes on that as well. And one of the ones was he was trying to play Split Fiction with his daughters, and so trying to do the boss fight. You know the boss fight in the sci-fi level where you're throwing cars and stuff, and you're trying to like defeat them. And yeah, just like he has like little video clips sometimes of him trying to do it with them, and you can really tell of like there's too much. You have too much to do on a timing basis, right? Of like have to get the thing, wait for the person, aim it properly, do it all in time before it disappears. That type of stuff, I imagine, is just very challenging because you want them to have enough freedom of time to just figure out what to do. There's so much happening that it's hard to navigate all that at once, all happening at the same time.
Yeah, totally. And then other levels that kind of through. There's a massive underwater level where you're freeing the bolts on like a starfish to release it in Astrobot. That was just completely different control scheme to what he was used to. It was like he really struggled with that. And we kind of clash a bit where he just wants to collect everything, but the most annoying thing about collecting everything is every time you die, everything respawns, whether it's like coins or whatever, and then he wants to collect everything again. It's just like, again, come on, if anyone's playing with toddlers out here, can this just be a toggle that once you collect a coin, it doesn't reappear, because then when you respawn, you don't have to go back and collect it. Little things like that are just very hard to negotiate with a toddler. It's like, we don't actually need this coin. We've got so many coins.
It's fun, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice. Collecting coins is good.
But it's just a way of like, this level could be 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes because we're going back and collecting every single effing coin because he has to collect it.
Hey, at least you have enough coins to like get the gacha machine.
Oh yeah. And I think that was a fun thing going back to the old levels, was we'd release the parrot, the bird or whatever, and then it would show you where the remaining Astrobots were that he enjoyed following. So like that's cool stuff there. So yeah, Astro's Playroom went very well as well. The final T-Rex boss, he really thought was very cool. And yeah, I just think the whole experience was great. And then I said to him, why don't we try Kirby again? And honestly, I think what has shocked me the most about this whole experience is watching him play that first tutorial level in Kirby again. And he just like, he didn't breeze through the whole thing. He managed to play the whole thing by himself. Of that first level, which blew my mind.
That's crazy.
Now I've got Kirby. It's on like the easy kiddie setting, or whatever it's called, which is pretty good. Annoyingly, you can't do co-op in the opening level because I was like, yeah, I'm going to do co-op with you. I'm going to be Waddle Dee and we're going to do this. It's like, nope, first level, Kirby
Weird,
only,
fine,
whatever. So he did that level, and I was like, high fives! Like, you've done that so well, and like I was so impressed. And then we did like the first main game level, and I came in as Waddle Dee, and I think there were a number of advantages and disadvantages to me coming in as Waddle Dee. I think what's cool, the best thing about me coming in as Waddle Dee is there's sometimes enemies, especially bosses in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, that you just have to wail on with a lot of damage, and Bally Jr. by himself, I think, would just get completely stomped. But me being at the back, racking up that damage, helping him out, it's like a really fun experience to do that together. And what was even more elevating for Bally Jr. was bosses were the thing that I would always do with Astrobot. Like, he didn't fight a single one of the bosses by himself. So like, this was something we were actually doing together. And then at the end of it, he was like, I beat a boss. Like, he was just so chuffed that he was part of beating a boss fight. I was like,
great.
you could beat the boss because I helped you. But that was still a really good thing because we were doing it together.
I did 80% of the damage, but you did it. Yeah, well done.
Right. I think what's frustrating about the co-op with Waddle Dee is the camera is completely fixed on Kirby. The not only is the camera quite fixed on Kirby, the camera's quite zoomed in on Kirby, generally speaking, because these levels sometimes get quite wide linear as well as just quite narrow. So on areas where it goes a bit wider, and I'm like, Bally Jr., come over here. Look, I'm over here. Come over here. This is we need. It's like he could just ignore me, walk on where he wanted to go, the wrong direction, obviously, and then I would just be warped to where he was. It's like, right, okay, whatever. We are being guided by the toddler. Whatever. Fine. This is fine. So yeah, it's just that I think. If the camera could just be a bit wider and I had more ability to help guide and support rather than Kirby be the genuine leader, I think that might make that balance a bit better. But now
I think the frustrating thing about Nintendo is that they design the secondary characters like the kid is the one doing it, but like of course he wants to be Kirby. Kirby's the main character. Kirby's the guy, right?
I mean, exactly. It's mad. It's mad. But he is now fully on the Kirby train. I think it's going really well. I think his skills have come on so much, and Astrobot now has this special place in my heart forever, where it's like, this is Bally Jr.'s first game that we like properly played all the way through, all together. We will go back to that game for sure at some point, and he's going to use his new skills to just get through the game better and maybe even take on a boss.
He's got to do the whole thing himself at some point,
Yeah, he has got to do that. Predictions on what age he'll be when he does the entire thing himself?
I don't know, 6 maybe. Like it's I think it takes quite a lot of skill, right? I don't know. It depends on his progress. Seems he's getting there pretty quickly. So maybe maybe 5 at this point. Who knows?
5, yeah. I'm gonna go for 7. You can go for 6, and we'll see how he does at 5. But then we got like Ballychew chasing him up,
right? Yeah,
up from behind. So he in a couple of years he's gonna be all on this as well.
I'm sure he will. Yeah.
A whole lot of video game coaching. But yeah, Kirby is the game at the moment. I can check in again when we see how that game does. And then he wants to play Pikmin.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's a number of challenges with Pikmin.
There's many challenges with Pikmin. Oh my god.
The 2 main challenges I see with Pikmin are, 1, it's quite scary. I think the enemies are quite intimidating and scary. I don't think he'd be ready for those. And the whole idea of like the Pikmin dying and things, we'd have to explain some sort of narrative around. They're not just completely dead. And 2, I'm worried that Pikmin, from a skill perspective, say he gets really good at Pikmin and has those skills, I don't think Pikmin skills are as transferable as like Kirby or Astrobot skills, like that 3D platforming environment.
The skill is different because it's more of a mental acuity as opposed to a dexterity, right? I would say that like what he's learning doing Pikmin is strategy more than learning how to move things about.
And we're not going to probably be playing a ton of strategy games, at least early on. So
I mean, you can get him Fire Emblem 7 on the GBA. It's pretty good. It's a starting point.
When do we start Pokemon? I think Pokemon is like...
Oh, honestly, that is a really good, like...
He asks a lot about Pokemon. He says, why do Pokemon fight? He says, like... Sometimes I'm like, it's a whole thing, Bally.
It's a whole thing,
yeah. We did try watching Mewtwo Strikes Back. I messaged you about this, and it's like a re CGI'd version of the 1999-98 film, whatever we watched. But he fell asleep very quickly.
Oh, damn. Okay. Well,
we kind of use films as like his chill out nap time in the afternoon. But so we got a bunch of games to think about. I think we talked about MZ as well, like 3D World. And maybe Mario Galaxy 1, and so there's things. I want to keep going on the 3D platformer trajectory, and that'll help with his controls. And then eventually, if he's working out how to do camera controls with a 3D platformer, that can transition to stuff like Zelda when he's older and stuff like this, so that's the
Zelda is where we start getting real serious. That's where
Zelda
he becomes a fan of video
games. Like his Breath of the Wild, go for that, Bally. Good luck.
Now you got it, mate. You have to start him with Wind Waker. That's the only right thing to do.
Wind Waker would be quite a good start. I think it's a lot simpler and obviously more linear,
and also less scary. I think because the art style as well. So
Yeah, until you get to those redeads and things
Well,
like that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, there's skeletons
scream at
in
you.
every Zelda game. There's no getting
There are
away from that,
skeletons,
unfortunately.
yeah.
So-
But yeah, I'm just so impressed that I was a bit worried after Mario Kart. I was like, how do we structure this in a way that he enjoys, where, like I said, the main aim is fun and the B tier aim is getting better. And I think we are hitting both of those massively with Astrobot and Kirby. And so, yeah, I've always got that in mind. It's just like, how do you make this fun for him? And yeah, he's addicted. It's all he wants to do. He talks about it so much. He asks me to do it. We play it in very fixed play sessions each time. I will clearly say to him how many levels we're going to do. I do it based more on levels rather than playtime. And then yeah, I say like, right, 1 level today or 2 levels now. We'll do 1 level before lunch, 1 level after lunch, and then that's it. And then he will just be talking until, because he has like 3 days of nursery in a row where there's no time, and he's just like absolutely gagging for a bit of video games come Thursday after he's had nursery. He's just like, I am so ready. So yeah, that's very exciting.
Nice.
But we had a couple of questions about potential video games Bally Jr. can play.
Yes, yeah, we should have been hanging around for a while. I thought this would be a good opportunity to go for those. Do you want to read these out, Bally?
First one's from Carl. Good afternoon, Bally. Hope you're well. I've just finished listening to the last episode of the podcast. As a dad of 2 young children, I found the section on trying to introduce games to your little one interesting. May I recommend a game which I found fantastic for my 2.5-year-old daughter for teaching her the basics of using a controller. The game is Paw Patrol Mighty Pups Save Adventure Bay. I know as a dad your eyes just rolled. Not fucking Paw Patrol again, but bear with me. The game is a 3D collectathon adventure with no right stick camera control, just left stick movement and 1 button for jump, with loads of very simple but satisfying mid-level minigames. It is on Game Pass and is an easy 1,000 gamer points. Hope you and Bally Jr. get some fun out of it. Yeah, I think this is a decent shout because he loves Paw Patrol. I would say he loves more the concept of Paw Patrol. We've not watched it in a while, but he does play with his Paw Patrol toys like every single day almost. I think maybe this is a problem I would have, not that he would have, but it's the idea.
This is Bally just talking about like, don't give him fucking McDonald's. We need to give him the Ritz, you know. Like
you've just eaten steak at the Ritz with Astrobot. Are we really gonna just stoop to the levels of Paw Patrol Pup Save Adventure Bay? Part of me is thinking that, but then part of me is looking from his perspective where. Sure, part of him might notice the difference in quality between like an Astrobot and a Paw Patrol, but ultimately he'll be like, this is Paw Patrol, this is great. And sounds like what you've said, Carl, like it's still 3D platforming, there's still controlling, you're moving and you're jumping. And I think what sounds cool about this that he was begging for with Astrobot is baddie-free levels, like some enemies without, some levels without enemies or baddies. I call them enemies sometimes, and Bally Jr. will correct me, say, no, not enemies. Baddies.
Of course,
I'm not even allowed to call them enemies. So yeah, I think this is a good shout. In terms of Game Pass, I think we talked about this on the other show, but like Game Pass's price has gone up, so I'd probably just put this on Deku Deals and try and find a sale at some point. And yeah, I think that's a good shout. Yeah, I might try that one.
Nice.
And then
we have another email from Paul.
Yes, from Paul says, hi, the perfect first step, Donut County. You're welcome. Regards, Paul. I think this is a great shout. I think this is like just a little, if we're on a 3D platforming train, this is just like a palate cleanser between games that is just something completely different, very zany. Another thing I've gotten Bally Jr. into is video game trailers. Like this is my way of conveying to him, oh, have you thought about this video game? And I can just show him a video game trailer. So we watched quite a lot of Astrobot trailers before playing Astrobot. And yeah, I think if I showed him a trailer for Donut County and just explained a little bit about how it worked, I think I could sell him on that. And yeah, it's like, I think it's just the left analog stick moving that hole around.
I think it is. Yeah, that's how easy it is to control. I'm pretty sure.
I think the later part of that game does get a bit tricky, but
yeah, I think also like the story segments. I can't remember what those are like. I imagine that's a thing that is harder. I mean, you probably just skip through it. I imagine because it's probably not a thing you'd want to read out to him on a story level. But maybe you make it up as you go along. You know, like you don't actually say what the characters are saying because they're just a bunch of animals or whatever.
Yeah. But no, I think that could be fun at some point. I think just having something that's short and is different to these quite meaty 3D platformers that take us weeks to get through is a good idea. So thank you very much for those suggestions.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's a lot of things to potentially do in the future. It's exciting though, because you got a lot of.
It's very exciting. And you're coming up in December, hopefully,
Yes.
MZ, so you can show off his new skills. To
Hell
you.
yeah,
Like maybe we could play the Christmas Astrobot level together.
That's a great idea.
I have teased this level to him. I think he'd seen a little bit of a let's play of one,
right,
of someone playing it, and
you're waiting till Christmas to do it, right?
and I'm waiting to. Well, he was like, Spider-Man. There's Spider-Man.
Oh dear.
Yeah, there's Spider-Man.
I think who was it who was talking about playing Spider-Man?
Greg Miller's son, Ben.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm impressed he's up for a 4-year-old with that level of fighting and everything.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we're also going in that direction. I don't know. But yeah, I think Ben Miller sounds like a bit of a savant when it comes to
I think
video
so.
games.
He's playing like Forza or whatever. So
Yeah, Bally Jr. is getting there. I can see us playing Spider-Man when he's, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 would be my guess. But
yeah,
I think that is
so.
going to be ridiculously exciting at some point when he finds out that there are 3 games so far.
Probably more by that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. By that point. I think that's a great shout at some point as well. It's a bit of Spider-Man, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Is he ever going to play Nintendo games? He's just going to be a Sony pony, but yeah.
No, Bally's just like he's corrupting him here, so I'm going to have to set him straight at some point. Great. Well, yeah, I was going to talk about another game, but we're going to skip that until next time. But we'll take a break here, and we'll be back after that with some of your emails. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of today's show. It is that time again. It is time for emails. If you would like to send an email into the show, please email ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. We also have a server on a channel on our Discord server. It is called Emails. You can send your questions, comments, thoughts over there. That would be greatly appreciated. Great little community we've got growing over there. Our first email this time is from Aaron H, who says, "Hi guys, I just finished Skyward Sword HD and honestly it was one of the most disappointing experiences I've had replaying a game. When I first played the original back in the day, I absolutely loved it. It was even in my top 3 favourite Zelda games for over a decade. But revisiting it now, so much of what was once felt fresh and exciting came off as stiff and outdated, especially after playing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's not that I hate the game, but my memory of it was so much better than the reality of what I just played. It made me wonder how many of the games we love today might age the same way over time. Have you ever replayed a game you loved and ended up respecting it less? Alternatively, have you ever not liked a game at first but ended up loving it after giving it a second try? Thanks, Aaron H."
Yeah, Skyward Sword is, it's a cool game. I did not finish my replay of Skyward Sword either. not because I hated it. I feel like it's one of those things that game, it was harder, I would say, to reproduce the Wii experience, in the sense that I don't think the Switch controls were quite up to par when it came down to motion stuff by comparison, because it was required a lot of the nice thing about the Wii was having the sensor bar and having the IR tracker allowed you to like recalibrate constantly when it was pointed at the screen, and when you don't have that with the Joy-Con, it creates a lot of manual recalibration, which is a bit frustrating. I think also because you have to play it that way, you don't have to. I mean, I strongly disliked using the analog stick controls. I thought it was not good, poorly implemented in the way that it was done, and I much prefer the motion stuff because that's how the game was built originally, right? And so I think playing it was harder because you would have to sit down and not be able to play it handheld, which obviously, made it a little bit of a harsher experience to go back to. But I think it maybe lowered the game slightly in my estimation, but not significantly. I think that game still is very good in lots of ways. I think dungeon-wise, it's still extremely strong and all those other elements. But story, yeah, still very, very well put together, and a lot of good characters in Skyward Sword as well. So, yeah, I do want to get back to it and finish that. But, I think, obviously, we do not replay many games, Bally, generally speaking. It's one of those things to think about, though, of, like, what are the games that if we were to replay them in the future, would they still have the same impact that they did the first time around? And that's something that I've thought a lot about with a bunch of different games. I think the one that is the hardest to do that with is Breath of the Wild, because it is such a impactful first experience that going back to it, especially with Tears of the Kingdom existing, and so your memories of that world are even stronger and more embedded because of revisiting it through a whole different game. It's one of those that I don't know that I would respect it less, but I might not enjoy it as much because part of that joy was this discovery in the first place.
I mean, I played, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes when I got the Switch 2, and that was the first time I played Breath of the Wild since 2017 or maybe the start of 2018, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wow, if I had a bit more time, I'd play this whole thing again. And I agree, I don't think that playthrough would be as impactful anywhere near.
Yeah. But
playing it with the increased resolution and frame rate, and not just that, but wanting to be back in that world, even we're 2 years on from Tears of the Kingdom, I still was up for like, maybe I could do this again. And I don't know, I felt that lure, because there's still a bunch of shrines in Tears of the Kingdom I want to go back to, but there's something, but starting from scratch in Breath of the Wild feels a bit more manageable than jumping back into late game Tears of the Kingdom where everything's a bit more complicated. And I mean, it's arguably the most systems heavy Nintendo game I can think of, to be honest. So maybe it's a little less daunting going back to Breath of the Wild. And I was pretty swept away by those 45 minutes. I'm not saying I'm going to actually replay it all anytime soon, but I will one day. And I think Switch 2 might be the platform to do it. It was incredible.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those, everyone asks, like, what would you, if you could wipe your mind and re-experience like TV, books, whatever, films? Because
discovery is the best part of that game, right? Like it
is the ultimate wipe my mind and let me do that again experience. I think there's definitely lots of those out there, but for games, I think it's kind of peak of the mountain just because of how special it was that first time through. So that's definitely up there. We did replay a bunch of Mario games a couple of years ago on the show, which I think is an interesting one for this, because I think of all of those, the one that that I ended up respecting and loving less was actually Mario Galaxy, which is a game that I think is beloved by many people, and lots of people are revisiting 1 and 2 now with the re-release on Switch 2. I would like to revisit 2 because I think 2 is the one where I have a feeling that that's the one that will hold up a bit better, generally speaking. But
it's got abilities like that cloud ability are just so great, and there's actually an ability in Astrobot I just remembered that is like so similar to that cloud ability where you jump and create a platform, jump and do it 3 times.
Yeah, Galaxy is definitely the game that I think influenced Astrobot the most when you think about it and look at what it did, generally speaking. But yeah, Galaxy 1 was the one where I don't think it's bad or... Like, I think the game is fantastic still, but it's just something about it didn't quite hit me in the same way. And I think it is also that wow factor, because I remember watching E3 videos before Galaxy came out and being like, this is amazing. I was like, this is crazy. You could go upside down, you know, like it was so mind-blowing at the time that, similar to Breath of the Wild, I think part of the wonder of Galaxy was that first time experiencing it and never having played anything like it before. I think that is a significant aspect to, you know, making that game special.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Galaxy was just kind of so incredible in my mind that it was kind of this impossible bar to match when you go back to it and then you think, this is really great and is one of the best 3D Mario platformers for sure, but it's not quite as incredible as I remember. And we've said on the show before, but I think the real hero of replaying those 3 was Mario 64. Like, we'd never actually played the original Mario 64. My first experience of Mario 64 was the DS remake, which was on launch of the DS and the original DS. And that game is just a bit strange where you're playing most of it with a D-pad, and then if you don't want to use a D-pad...
You're also playing as Yoshi to begin with, and you only get the characters with hats as well.
You can play as Yoshi, there's Wario's in there, there's like specific levels, and the idea of playing it with that weird touch screen control that was replacing the analog stick was just horrible. So to play the original... up-res and whatever it was on that Switch remake, it felt fantastic. And then personally, Mario Sunshine, in my mind, I really enjoyed it at the time. I never actually beat it way back when it came out, and that was actually my first exposure to any 3D Mario platformer.
It would have been
back in 2003, maybe
2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and it came out in summertime, which was very thematic. That game aged fine. Like, I think because it was never in my mind quite as highly as Galaxy. It wasn't trying to surpass this ridiculous bar in my mind. But the lower bar that was in my mind, it kind of did surpass. It was fine. It was good. It was a really great game. Like, I had a good time with it, and it's still got some of the gnarliest levels you've ever seen. And there's a lot of BS in there, undeniably. But I did have a good time with that game.
Yeah, Mario Sunshine was shit, is still shit, continues to be, so I think we all know where we stand.
You had a good time with that game.
Look, I think if I hadn't live streamed that game, I think I would not have enjoyed myself, but I think having people watch the pain is part of the enjoyment, I think, of Mario Sunshine, because otherwise, I don't know, I think I would have gone a little bit insane. Like, the thing about Mario Sunshine is it is very clearly the least polished of the 3D Mario games.
Yes.
Like, there are so many little things where you're like, oh, that's weird that happened. It's like, I think it's the only time I've had like proper glitches and like strange things happening in a 3D Mario.
I'm falling through the world again.
Which is definitely, it says a lot about how quickly they had to make that game and the time constraint they had on it, which was I
guess they wanted it really near. Well, I guess it was originally meant to be launched and then missed that window, I'm guessing, and then kind of slid.
I think so. I mean, Bally, you've gone back and played some old like Mario sports games as well that seem like they have hold up, and you've loved them just as much as you did back then.
Yeah, Mario Golf is an example. I just played it at some point last year, I think, and it's just really, really impressive the way they render a 3D world using 2D pixels in that game, and like, I mean, it's not rendering a 3D world, it's depicting a 3D world. And I think that is just so impressive. And the RPG mode holds up. I'm like a stuck record now, but I want the Mario sports games to go back to their RPG modes. I'm not the only one who believes stuff like that. And then when I think more widely, I just think it's actually Nintendo games that I think have aged the best. Like when I I'd never played the original Wave Race 64, and both of us, we did that. Was that for a Backlog Club, MZ?
It was a Backlog Club, yes.
We went back and played that, and we were both like, this game is awesome. Like,
it's great. It's so good.
Physics are incredible. The graphics are, they're muddy, but they work so well. Like, the water still looks very good. And it's like, God, this plays so well. And it's from like, what, the launch of the N64? Or near the launch of the N64. It was like very early N64. And then the game that actually was from the launch of the N64, which I also thought had aged pretty well, is Pilot Wing 64. Like, I think that's another game that just kind of, it looks a bit jank maybe, but I think it just feels and plays really well. And I just think there's just this way that Nintendo games are made where they probably didn't even mean for it to be intentional in the moment, but there's something about the way they're made that just playing them 20, 30 years on is like, this feels amazing. It actually works really well. And Mario Golf, Pilot Wing 64, Wave Race 64, Mario 64, they're all good examples of just like older Nintendo games that have aged really well. There's some people saying, how can you call N64 old? Like, I'm afraid by this point N64 is quite old. So
it's quite retro. I'm afraid to tell
retro,
you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's also quite highlighted by the fact that if you were to go back to third-party games or even like PlayStation games of that era, a lot of them do not hold up in that same way, and it says so much about the quality bar Nintendo was hitting back then compared to its competitors, and why these games ultimately stand the test of time, right? I think it says quite a lot. One that I've gone back and ended up respecting less, which is quite predictable, is the Jackie Chan beat 'em up that we played on GBA Bally that we loved. That I did load up on my Steam Deck and was like, let's go back to this, and I was like, oh boy, this is rough. This does not feel.
We've played like Streets of Rage and games like that since. And it's just like, wow.
Does not quite hold up. So I mean, that's very obvious that would be the case. But I need to go back and replay some older like games from that era a bit more.
I think we need to play Jedi Power Battles on the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, dude, I actually did load up Jedi Power Battles as well.
And
that one's
still got the most jank jump you've ever seen in the game.
Yeah, it's not great, but I think it was better than Jackie Chan as far as I could tell. So, but yeah, that's definitely one that is definitely tricky to go back to still. But
VMT3BYJ, if you want to play as Darth Maul.
Everyone just put it into your GBA, have it ready. Bally's here to tell you the code every day.
The same code you can also play as Qui-Gon Jinn on any level you pick.
You can from the beginning. Yeah, it's great. The alternate question here, is there a game that you ended up not loving but did after going back to it? I mean, the age-old one for me is Xenoblade Chronicles, which I wouldn't say I disliked it, but it was more of a I was trying to play it with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck and just like dying on that first spider and like just stopped playing it and then came back to it 10 months later when I had a Pro Controller and then finally kind of getting into it. That's probably like the biggest example for me of like bouncing off. Actually, the other one is Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a game that I bought in a sale the year it came out and was like, I don't really love this. And then I came back to it like a year and a half later, and I think it was my Goatee Dakoti of that year. I just like really fell in love with it. So it very rarely happens for me that I like bounce off and then come back later, but it has happened a couple of times, and both times have been like, oh, actually, these are some of my favorite games I've played, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've not often had the time to bounce off a game and then come back to it. I can't think of examples.
Definitely bounced off a lot of games that you have yet to return to, I guess.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, I've not really bounced off of Witcher 3. I just need some time to get back to it. I never actually stopped enjoying that game. Then Elden Ring is just like this intimidating thing in my mind that is going to take a lot more commitment to get back into at some point. I don't plan on going back to games like Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Or Xenoblade X.
Xenoblade Chronicles X is a famous one. Interesting he talks about Xenoblade. I felt like the way I handled that final boss was so dire that I felt like the more I played that game, the less I liked it, the more I played, which is very sad. So maybe the original Xenoblade Chronicles is a game I should try replaying at some point to try and have a...
Yeah.
Because I just think I am categorically better at JRPGs right now than I was.
Oh, 100%. And also, like, the remake of Xenoblade 1 is great because I'm someone who's played that game multiple times, and my replay of it, again, I think a replay of that game, like, basically made it even more ironclad in my mind that it's one of my favorite games of all time. I remember you saying this, yeah. The nice thing about it was there is grinding at the end of Xenoblade 1 to do that final boss, and I just changed it to easy. And that I played the game on normal, and then I got to the end, I was like, I don't want to grind, I'm going to change it to easy, and I just finished it, which is a very, very nice thing to do. And I think them adding those quality of life things into the remake was very appreciated, I would say. So that helps a great deal.
But yeah, I don't really fall off games, get back to them. The only two I intend to do that with are Elden Ring and Witcher 3, and you'll hear about those in the future, I'm sure. But yeah.
Yeah, in 2046.
2046. I mean, Bally Jr. is going to beat me to it at this rate, so
he will. Yeah. This is the bet that we have going at some point.
He's like, Dad, Margit was easy. Like, why?
Yeah, guys pissed me. I was dancing on his grave. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think I've done these emails in the back to front order, and
That's okay.
I'll get to the other email, which is from Andrew from Florida, who says, "Hey Bally and MVZ, first time emailer and long time listener. I recently listened to Bally's recounting of his playthrough of Professor Layton, and if I'm not mistaken, I picked up on Bally letting slip him emulating this game. Perfectly respectable in my opinion, considering the publisher isn't doing their job in making this game available on modern platforms. What is your DS emulation setup? Using a modded 3DS, played on PC, your phone? Before 2025, these were practically your only options, but personally, I've noticed this year a proliferation of dedicated retro gaming consoles that are dual screen. Check out the subreddit r/SBC Gaming. AYN Thor in particular is the latest hotness. I'm tempted to pick up one for myself. I certainly don't need it, but it looks so cool. Cheers, Andrew from Florida." I just want to pick up on something here, MBZ. Can I pick up on something quickly?
Go on, pick it up, yeah.
Considering, Andrew says, considering the publisher isn't doing their job in making the game on modern platforms, MBZ, you work for a publisher. Is your job to make sure that the games you publish are available?
Look, I work in the realm of modern indie video games, so this is not an issue yet. Call me in 20 years when people are asking for, why is Case the Golden Idol not playable on my Nintendo Switch 7, okay? All right, then I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. I don't think it's the job of the pub. I think their job is to make some money and publish some very good games in the moment. I don't really think it's their job, but I just thought it was an interesting take.
Yeah, absolutely. So Giant Bomb did a quick look of the AYN Thor, the Iron Thor, which is a handheld emulation console that is just a fucking DS. That's what it is. They just made a DS. I really recommend watching that video. It's very funny because Dan is like playing it and he's like, anyway, on the top screen I could be like playing a Super Nintendo game, and then on the bottom screen I could be watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which is exactly what he does. He just like shows it off. He's like, yeah, I'm just on Netflix on this bottom screen. I'm playing a game on the top. Like, it is the most ADHD brain device I think that could exist, which I think is very funny. It's built on Android.
Just put on the baseball in the background. That's perfect.
Yeah, totally. Then you have three things happening at once, and your brain is fully wired. I'm definitely tempted by the Thor. It's a thing that I'm curious about. I do have good ways of playing DS and 3DS stuff at the moment, but like I think it's a potential thing to pick up. I'm probably going to wait until they refine it a bit more, because this is kind of the first version of this, and see what they do with subsequent ones. I only own one emulation handheld, which I got in 2022, I want to say, which is the Ambernick. Yeah, the little Ambernick. And God, the whole scene has exploded so much since then. Like back then, there were some choices, but they were a little bit limited. But there are so many options now, from Miu Minis to like other Ambernick devices to the Iron devices. Like there's a bunch of like more powerful high-end ones, of course, the ROG Ally and things like that, and the Lenovo Legion Go. But like in the realm of emulation, smaller ones, there's so many companies vying for your attention and having all these different versions. So there's a lot more competition in the space, which I think is quite good because it means better products for everybody. But yeah, Bally, you're playing on the probably the easiest one to play stuff on these days, and I would say is the most recommended device for emulation, which is the good old Steam Deck.
Yeah, I mean this is MBZ's old Steam Deck, but he obviously like wiped the thing, helped me make a Steam account, got it all set up for me, and then he did his Hocus Pocus witchcraft, and then I had Professor Layton.
Yeah. So yeah, I put all that stuff together. It's all on RetroArch, which I think is my favorite favorite kind of way of doing stuff. There are some emulators on Steam Deck that have to be different. So Dolphin, of course, for GameCube and Wii, and then PlayStation and PlayStation. I guess PlayStation 1 is on RetroArch. You can do it on RetroArch. PS2 is a little harder because it doesn't quite run that properly. But
they all sit under the same umbrella. Is that right? Or like the same program?
When you say umbrella, you mean like they're in Emulation Station, basically.
Yes, they're in Emulation Station. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So I set up Bally with Emulation Station on Steam Deck, which is basically like a nice front end to make it all look pretty, and so you're not going through folders and stuff like that. So that obviously breaks it into different console categories and everything, and then each console has its own emulation kind of like program that it uses, right? So most of the older ones I try and make work with RetroArch, because RetroArch is just very easy to use from a save state standpoint, but also from like changing controls or setting up things like the DS where you can have different configurations for the multiple screens, right? Which makes it nice to swap between. So when you were doing Layton, you could make the touchscreen much larger and therefore easier to interact with, and then swap between them and all that sort of stuff. So that's generally my most favored way of approaching those games. But I think this is really Bally's first brush with emulation, because Bally is a vanilla boy in many ways, and I think one of those ways is he's afraid of technology, kind of, and doesn't really know how computers work, and therefore never really dabbled with emulation.
If everyone needs a PC pal who knows what they're doing, and I've definitely got one of those. So yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You've also always owned Macs as well, and not laptops or PCs.
Yeah.
So like when I was at school and I was 14 and I'm like playing Fire Emblem 6 fan translation, like I've done this from quite a young age, and so I'm not like an expert at it by any means, but
you are also IT support for your entire family. You're forgetting to mention this important title.
I think, but also like your IT support for your company apparently, and that's there's degrees of IT support here. Let's say
I'm just described as a quote unquote whizzy a few times because I do video production at work basically.
Because you know how to edit a video.
I can edit videos. Yeah.
So like I've emulated stuff on like my laptop since I was quite young at school basically, so I've always been interested. When I first discovered you could do that, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I could play Game Boy games on my computer. Like I remember sitting in lectures at my first university playing like Breath of Fire on the Super Nintendo emulator and being like, this is crazy, it's so cool, like being able to go back to the history of games and just like check stuff out and just see what's going on. Like I did a lot of GBA emulation back then really, and like dabbled with some other stuff, and then just since have been always into trying to set these things up and make them work. Like I have there's a 3DS visual novel that I've yet to play that I spent like a whole day trying to set up, and then I didn't play it because the fun of it for me is just like getting it to work in the first place and seeing if I could do that. I've always kind of gone deep on it. So
it's actually something I do want to get better at. And you know what? The few times where I've had issues, like the touchscreen on my Steam Deck will sometimes just like stop working, and there's ways of rebooting it in certain ways to get it out of this. And it's very easy to Google these things, YouTube these things, and I do want to get better at these things. I want to have the ability to just, set up my own game and play on it and these sorts of things.
And at the end of the day, that's what I do as well. Like a lot of it is just being smart about looking things up.
Exactly. It's just practice doing that.
Yeah, just practice doing it, and then just like following instructions a lot of the time as well. Like it's not that difficult. It's just whether you want to commit to being able to do it or not, right? And that's kind of ultimately the choice that gets made. But in terms of like my preference for like emulation setup, I do really like the Steam Deck. I think it's a very flexible device for all these reasons. I have played a lot on my PC as well. Like when I played Phoenix Wright stuff, like I usually played that on DS emulation on my PC. I think Phoenix Wright 4.
Do you blow it up full screen? Do those pixels look good, or do you have it in a smaller screen?
No, it depends. Sometimes I do, but like I think for Daigakuten Saiban, the first Great Ace Attorney, before it was translated, but I used the fan translation of the first game before they officially released it here, and I think I played that at full screen and then upped the resolution on it just so it looked more crisp full screen. But sometimes I'll just have it in a bit of a smaller window just because it feels better because it is a handheld game in that way. But just it kind of it depends on the game and how weird it looks blown up on a big screen basically. But yeah, and it's also the decision of like a lot of those ones are fine to play side by side mode instead of bottom and top mode, basically, because they are kind of distinct screens, and it doesn't. There's no stuff that goes between them, because there's certain DS games where top screen and bottom screen are linked, and so things go in between them, and so you can't really play those on a side by side basis, which means like if you ever wanted to replay Phantom Hourglass, for example, I think Steam Deck is a bit of a lesser option for that, because the top to bottom view is quite small on the real estate that you have on the screen, basically. So yeah, games like that are much harder, I would say, to play.
I think Layton worked well because I don't, unless I buy like a touch capacitive sensitive stylus, I don't think that I would, as you say, want to play a ton on the Steam Deck with DS. And the pacing and the way that Layton works, I think works really well for just using my big fat finger to just press things here and there, and it actually worked really well. I think Layton would be, not Layton, Phoenix Wright would probably be similar, like it just works better. But yeah, you're right. The second it's Phantom Hourglass, where you are just using that stylus for every single interaction, I think it wouldn't work. On top of the fact that, as you say, the screen's quite a bit smaller when you have the top screen over the bottom screen, and then you've got big black bars on either side. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, like, for the most part, my preferred way of DS emulation is just the actual DS itself, which is to say I've had an Ace card for like many years, right? And I've played a lot of games through that on my DS, and that is the actual experience, right? And so that's always going to be better because you have the actual hardware, and so the touchscreen works like a touchscreen does, and you have a stylus, and you have the DS screens exactly the size they should be, and it all works together. Obviously, there's issues with it because it's emulating, it can be a little bit slow sometimes, and so there's definitely been DS games I've played on that which have had like slowdown and stuff that they wouldn't have if it was the official cartridge and that type of thing. But yeah, I think a lot of people at this point have been able to hack their 3DSs also, which is another good option to do, which is if you're able to do that, then you can play DS games on 3DS, and they don't look quite as good because of the resolution difference between those consoles, but yeah, still a good way to do it. But I think, like, at this point in time, once the Iron Thor becomes like a more founded piece of hardware, and there's more support for it, and they've gone through a few iterations, I think probably that's actually the best way to play these games. What I'm waiting for is for someone to actually make the stereoscopic 3D again, because that's the one thing that is missing from these devices is, if you want to emulate 3DS stuff, there's really no good way to do it aside from actually owning a 3DS, because it's that's how the screen was built. So yeah, we have to wait for these devices to get to the point where they actually have the 3D slider as a possibility, and I think that's when I buy an Iron Thor. I think is when I have the ability to do everything and do the 3DS sliding and all the DS stuff as well. And I think that device is powerful enough to play like up to maybe Switch level of games, which is kind of crazy. So these devices are getting very, very powerful at this point in time. So yeah, we're really on the horizon, I would say, for emulation stuff and what's going on with it.
I definitely agree with Andrew's principle of like, well, if there's literally no way of playing this game, then sure, let's just emulate it.
Yes.
Do you think now that the Switch 2 has this like mouse functionality, that they attempt to do anything DS related, or is that far too clunky? And are they more likely to probably do the DS on the what do you even call it, Switch Online, and then sell some sort of touchpad peripheral that comes with it, a bit like the Virtual Boy or whatever? They just sell a plastic peripheral to use a touchscreen.
Well, the Switch 2 the Switch 2 is a touchscreen, right? Like you can just do it on there. I guess the problem with DS games is the TV of it all. If you're playing on a TV, how do you do DS games there? Maybe it's one of those situations when Nintendo...
I mean, the Wii U was just perfect, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, it could be one of those situations when Nintendo just says... you can only play it in handheld mode, basically, to do DS. Like, I mean, they're putting out the Virtual Boy and saying you can only do it if you buy this stupid peripheral. Like, yes. I don't think they're above saying the DS is only playable on handheld mode, So,
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right. Would they do that for 3DS with no 3D mode?
Yeah, I think they would, because they already made the 2DS and that exists. So I think they've already signaled with their hardware they're okay with leaving it behind, which is a shame, but I think they would still do that, to be honest with you, which is, not what I would want, but it's very hard. It's probably So the problem with Nintendo having such specific hardware is that it gets so difficult to properly emulate it in the future, which, to be fair, is kind of what Nintendo wants. They don't want people, like, they're the most litigious company when it comes to emulation and ROMs and all that sort of stuff. They don't want people doing that. They want to stop people doing that at all costs. And so, having the 3DS not be perfectly emulatable is probably a very good thing in Nintendo's books.
Right.
So I imagine they're quite happy about that.
I had one more question that's completely left my mind.
I was going to ask you about Steam Machine, because that's coming down the line,
Machine,
and that's something that you'll eventually be able to have on your TV. So maybe you can play, some these old PS2 and GameCube games on a big screen if you wanted to. I guess.
Totally. My very quick question before I get to that was just, they've not actually done any handheld systems on the thing yet, have they? No, they've got the Game Boy Advance, obviously, and Game Boy.
They've got GBA, yeah, they've got GBA and Game Boy
and Game
Original
Boy
as well.
Yeah, okay.
So.
No, ignore me.
But those are much easier to
easy,
put on there, given the way they're built.
Steam Machine. I think I'm very keen on the Steam Machine. Obviously, the price is a factor, but I think the two reasons I would want a Steam Machine are, number one, I now have a Steam library, and through a bunch of sales and other things, and MBZ saying, Bally, this game's on sale, you should pick it up. It's like, oh, well, that's like the whole Mass Effect collection for £3. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to play this, but sure.
Yeah.
And then thinking, well, actually, now I own Mass Effect collection. It probably doesn't run the best on Steam Deck, and I could get it to run much nicer with a bit more oomph. So the power factor is a factor for me. Like, I having
Space Marine 2 we've been waiting to play for ages, and like, it's the Steam Deck version is not very good at all. So now you could just play it on that instead, and also not have to pay for online as well.
That's a third factor, actually. Yeah. So number one factor, I want some power to games I already own on Steam Deck. That would be nice. Second factor is, it would be really nice to be able to play Steam games on my TV. That would be really nice. And yeah, third factor. And this is where I think it's just really interesting if Steam Deck, I think it's a factor that could catch on to a more mainstream market. As I said, emphasize could rather than will. Not paying for online to play online is a really big deal to me, because sure, I want to try Peak, I want to try Arc Raiders, I want to try all these games, but the idea of paying for those games and then on top of that paying for like a month of either Game Pass Ultimate or PlayStation Network, PS Plus, I guess it's called, is just really like, this feels very unfair and like an additional cost that is just stressful.
It's multiplayer tax.
It's very annoying. So having a box where I can probably buy the game cheaper because it'll be on Steam rather than through Xbox or Sony or PlayStation, whatever. And then on top of that, to be able to jump in with you, MBZ, and play online without paying a monthly cost. Because a monthly cost means, right, this is my 1 month to play this game online, probably with MBZ,
right.
And then
it time factors it as well.
It becomes
it's like,
a time pressure,
this. Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of time, and the time that I do have, we need to record this podcast. I need to play games to talk about this podcast. I need to do other stuff, and like, I don't like the month deadline to do a thing. So just being able to be like, yeah, this game came out this year, and I'll pick it up when it's on sale, and then MBZ can tell me, Bally, this game's on sale, let's play online together, and it's a much easier decision for me to pick up that game that you've just told me is on sale, and we'll jump online together through the Steam Machine and play together. I mean, we could do that right now on Steam Deck. The problem is that for the majority of games we want to play, like, for example, a Space Marine 2, I need a bit more oomph than what I have on the current Steam Deck. So that's a third very important factor for me, why I think the Steam Machine is really great. And if this thing takes off and can change the language around monthly costs of playing online with Xbox and PlayStation and make them look a bit silly, I think that would be very fun for the industry. I think that's really exciting. I'm skeptical it will take off quite to those levels, but it's certainly a cool thing that if, say, 3, 6, 9 million people thought was a cool thing to do and a reason to pick up, the Steam Machine, then maybe. I have friends like Shaq and Alex, and they love to play games online. If you said to them, right, you've got this one-off cost to buy this box, but then you don't have to pay your monthly PS Plus, would you be tempted? And for them, it's probably a lot of, well, it's a different ecosystem, so that's a bit of a jump. But I know for a fact they both have Steam accounts and have a number of games on Steam, so that would obviously link up in some way. And And then after that, I guess the question would be, okay, but does the game there into have crossplay? Probably, if it's a high-profile game.
At this point in time, yeah,
Totally.
for big multiplayer stuff.
I think there's a chance Valve could be onto something much bigger than people are giving it credit for at this point in time. And I don't think I've even heard that this whole pay online discussion even happened much in the podcast I listened to in terms of Steam Machine benefits. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, and obviously part of that is also I can come over and just set up the emulators on there for you as well, and then you're like, well, now I can play.
Yeah, got my IT support to come.
I can play Dreamcast or whatever the fuck on here. So that's a good potential thing. But yeah, thanks for the emails, Bally. If people would like to send an email in to the show, where can they send it to?
Please email ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com.
Great. Obviously, you can find us all over the internet in various places. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher. Download us, all that good stuff. And you can also support the show by going to patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife, where Bally would like to thank some of our supporters.
Yes, thank you to our $10 tier plus patrons. They are Sullivan C, Zach S, Thomas, Matthew, Albert, Wicked Gamer UK Alan, Orange Thunder, Nintendo Man, Turtle, and Ali T. Thank you all for your support. You heard from Ali T at all? What's he playing at the moment?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on.
He jumped into Hades 1 last we mentioned him, didn't he? So
he did. Yeah. Should we let's do everyone's favourite
stalk Ali T on the show live.
Let's talk him on the show live. What's Ali T been up to? He's currently offline. That's a shame. So he's played 15 hours of Hades. So he's done some good time into it.
Okay, probably not enough to have done a successful run, but you never know.
You never know. He's quite good at video games.
He is quite good
at this point in time. So maybe he beat the game once and was like, "Oh, I'm done now." But yeah, who knows what that boy is up to.
But yeah, thank you also to all of our other patrons. We really, really appreciate all the support you give this show. And of course, we've got our Nintendo Game of the Year coming up. We'll do that on this Nintendo Life in December.
Absolutely.
You can check that out for a single $1.
Yeah, please do. Obviously, you can find us on the internet on Blue Sky. I'm at NVZ. Where can I find you, Bally?
I'm on Blue Sky at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91.
You can also find the podcast account, which is at TNL Podcast. That will give you updates on the show and when it's coming out and all the fun things around it. And yeah, I think that is pretty much going to do us. I think next time we'll lay out our plans for Game of the Year stuff, because it'll be we'll still be in December, but we'll still have all the Game of the Year stuff coming.
And Metroid won't be out for next time. We will be talking about other things.
Yes. So it'll be I guess that first that second December show will be quite big, because we'll have Metroid and we'll have some Game of the Year stuff. So lots to be talking about. We'll get planning around that, and I'm sure it will be all good. But until then, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back at you in a couple weeks' time. Until then, thanks so much. See you soon. Bye bye.